Good evening, everybody. Brian Neubert here from goldenblack.com, the face you love to see after Purdue loses basketball games, I'm quite certain. This is our wrap video following Purdue's 70-66 loss here in Mackey Arena to Texas. If you're new to the show, once again, since it's the start of the season, we'll just go through our little intro each time. This is our wrap video following Purdue basketball games. I talk about the game. You listen. It's sort of like our primary analytical platform, but also my subversive lampooning of the awkward, loveless marriage that came out of the shotgun wedding undertaken many years ago between sports writers and emerging technology. So this is what it is. I record myself talking about the game. And there is a lot to talk about here today. Obviously a disappointing loss for Purdue, one in which Purdue was not the better team tonight, and I don't just mean that based on the scoreboard, but when you looked at everything that went into this game, Purdue was in position to win this game. Purdue was very fortunate probably to be in that position to win this game because they did not have an answer for Matt Coleman. They allowed too many doors kicked open when Purdue had the door there to slam shut, or at least extend a lead out into a much more comfortable territory. Purdue's strengths did not necessarily show up in this game. Obviously, Purdue is still in the process of establishing its strengths, but the things Purdue is counting on to be its strengths weren't necessarily there. And just Texas did a lot right, and Purdue did not do as much right. And I think that had Sasha Stefanovic just not come out in the first half and made 4 straight threes, I think this would have been a very different game at halftime. And had this been a very different game at halftime, this would have been a very different game to start the second half, and the ending might not have been what it was. But obviously, look, what this comes down to is Purdue has a 5-point lead with 3 minutes to go, and commits 3 straight turnovers, 2 of which were just egregious mishandling of the ball, one of which was Aaron Wheeler taking a routine pass and seemingly booting it and losing it out of bounds, and then Eric Hunter coming off a curl, taking a very routine pass right in front of Matt Painter, losing it off his fingertips. Texas takes full advantage, goes on a 7-0 run, never looks back, wins the game there. Purdue had this game to win, didn't do it. In the first half, Purdue had a very similar sequence where they were up 6, could have pushed this out to 8-10. This could have been a 10-point lead at halftime. Misses a couple times at the rim. Texas makes a 3 off of it. I can't remember what happened after that. Yada, yada, yada. Another opportunity squandered. I know that this team is feeling its way around. It's establishing itself. It's learning to play together, all that stuff. But, things are typically different in Mackey Arena than they are elsewhere. And it just seems like, Purdue teams historically, no matter their circumstances, have made those plays when they've needed to make them, and that's why Purdue has been so difficult to beat in Mackey Arena over the years. But that underscores where this team seems to be right now. That obviously this is only the second game. Last year, more than any game, any season ever before, showed us that non-conference reality is not necessarily enduring reality. But Purdue just looks like it's got a long way to go here. That's obviously the biggest takeaway from this. I think Purdue has to become mature enough to make winning plays in winning situations. We don't have a whole lot of data here at this point about Purdue's ability to do that or not do that. But when you look at where things broke down, you do have a lot of. This isn't a team playing a lot of freshmen or newcomers, but this is a team playing a lot of sophomores who haven't been in these situations as much before as the guys this team is counting on. And when you look at some of the guys who turned the ball over or whatever it might have been in certain situations, it was some of those guys. Some of this is going to be a growing process, obviously. This team, as it's constructed right now, kind of learning how to win. The fact Purdue is in position to win this game when so much didn't necessarily go its way, I think kind of falls in line with last year with, Florida State and Texas games. Purdue should have won both of those games probably, but the fact that they even were in position to maybe showed a little bit of its potential that came out later in the season. Now, obviously, in Mackey Arena, things are different. This isn't the same. May or may not be a great Texas team. I don't know. But you have to give Texas a ton of credit for making every shot, every play, every whatever they had to do to win this game when they were in a position where they almost didn't. But Purdue has to figure some things out here, and that was always going to be the case. I think team defense clearly is going to be something this team's going to have to grow into. The hope was Purdue would be a very good team defensively early on especially, but that was an assumption made solely on the fact that it has two really good individual defenders. That doesn't necessarily mean that when Texas puts Matt Coleman in a ball screen over and over and over again, that everybody around the ball screen action is doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing. That being said, Matt Coleman just flat out beat it a couple times. When you look at what he did at the end of the game there, in terms of getting the dunk for Sims, and then playing off of that, and when Purdue was in full rotation to take away the dunk, Coleman made a great pass out to whatever his name is, Febris, I believe, for that big three that he made. Coleman was just masterful in this game. And he beat Purdue with jump shots last year when he wasn't supposed to be a very good jump shooter. And Purdue played arguably the worst closeout game I've ever seen a Purdue basketball team play. Tonight, he simply beat Purdue's ball screen defense repeatedly. Made the right play every time, scored 22 points, whatever it was, but also just made great decisions, made great passes, and he just carried Texas in this game. He was the best player on the floor and just carried his team to a win in a place where it's very difficult for people who aren't Purdue to win historically. I think offensively, Purdue is going to be a work in progress. That's nothing new. I think what Purdue has to be able to do clearly is get the post established, and it looked like they really wanted to early on. Texas, whatever it was, made it really difficult. Didn't help that Matt Harms got called for 2 offensive fouls early. But Purdue wasn't able to really get the interior game going. I know when I asked Matt Painter about that in the press conference, he listed the field goal attempt numbers for both Matt Harms and Travion Williams. But I don't know if all shots are created equal. I know Matt Harms took a jumper at the end of a shot clock off an inbound. I know Matt Harms shot a runner in the last couple of minutes when Purdue was in scramble mode. Travion Williams had a bunch of tap backs that didn't go. So those field goal numbers, I don't think, are reflective of the sorts of low post opportunities Purdue wants to be able to get it for its big men. That was probably athleticism and length out on the perimeter, making things a little bit difficult. So stop me if you've heard that one before, where an opponent is longer and more athletic than Purdue, and that creating problems for Purdue. That's just something that's been an issue over the years, and probably will be until Purdue can stock its roster with guys who go to schools that, do things a certain way. But athleticism obviously factored into this. Texas has a lot of it. Purdue maybe doesn't as much. But Purdue has guys on this team that it needs to be good who, obviously struggled a little bit tonight. They wanted to get, I know they want to get Nogel Eastern a lot of high percentage looks around the basket. He was 3 of 10. That's very uncharacteristic of him. Aaron Wheeler really struggled to make shots. All the shots he made against Green Bay and some other games early in the season he didn't make. He was only 1 of 6 from the floor. Got some really good looks from 3 that just kind of rimmed out. Purdue ran a play for him late in the game to get him a really good 3 that rimmed out too, but Matt Harms was called for the bad screen. Just kind of couldn't get him going. But Purdue needs its strengths to be its strengths. They turned the ball over when Aaron Wheeler was putting the ball on the floor trying to cross somebody up. Sometimes it feels like Nogel Eastern dribbling a lot. Sometimes I don't know if that's necessarily, his game. But Purdue needs its strengths to be strengths. It doesn't need guys trying to make plays that aren't necessarily their comfort zone. It needs to get the post established and play from there. It needs to move the ball. It needs to share the ball. That's when it's been most successful from an offensive perspective this young season. Purdue's strengths, whatever they may be, whatever we can presume Purdue's strengths to be, were not strengths tonight necessarily. Purdue's got to get something done in the paint. The points in the paint were 26, which sounds like a lot, but it's really not all that much. And Texas got 24, so that was almost a draw. Purdue really wanted to keep Texas out of transition, I'm quite certain. Couldn't do it. That was a big part of what I talked about earlier, where Purdue had opportunities up 5 points, 6 points, whatever it may be. All of a sudden, they let Texas get out in transition, make a 3, something along those lines. All of a sudden, it's a new game. And, Purdue just had so many opportunities to make this game very different than it was. But the reality was Purdue had this game won. Purdue couldn't make a play or two when it needed to, a simple play or two to win this game. But I do think you have to give a lot of credit to Texas here. I know people have a certain opinion of Shaka Smart sometimes as a coach, but I think he's got talent on this team, and I think Matt Coleman, when you have a guard who's in command of everything like Texas does, that maybe Purdue doesn't have that offensive presence yet in its offensive development, and I thought you saw that late in the game too, where Purdue doesn't have that guy where you obviously get the ball to him. It's a big advantage, and Matt Coleman was damn near flawless in this game, and it didn't matter who guarded him. They put Nogel Eastern on him a little bit there in the second half. If this were a one-on-one deal between Matt Coleman and Nogel Eastern, I'm sure Nogel Eastern would have had a real advantage there at times. But when they put him in that ball screen action, it takes away the one-on-one matchup defensively, and it puts the onus on the contained guy, puts the onus on the entire team. And as I said, Coleman made the right decision every time, made a bunch of plays for a bunch of people in big situations, and you have to give him all the credit in the world. He won this game for Texas, if you ask me. So that's kind of what happened here. Very disappointing loss for Purdue, as it always is when you lose at home. This is a very tough place for other people to win, as you know. But I guess the story of this game is simply that, Purdue didn't seem ready to win a game like this. Almost did anyway, which I guess is kind of a backhanded compliment. But, the reality of the situation tonight was Purdue wasn't the better team. I don't think. I thought Texas was better. I mean, when you just look at shooting numbers, which obviously speaks to one's ability to get good possessions on the road, which speaks to one's ability to execute and whatnot. Texas shoots 52.4%. Purdue shoots 38%. So obviously, from an offensive perspective, one team is further along. It certainly seems like from a defensive perspective, one team is significantly further along as well. So Purdue's got a lot of improvement to make here, clearly. Lots of opportunities this non-conference season to win games like this. You don't want to put a happy face on a really disappointing loss, but, as I said before, last season showed people more than any other season before that there is benefit sometimes to be taken from losses, and if this shines a light on all the things Purdue's got to get better at, perhaps Purdue gets a little bit better off because of it. So obviously we'll see what Purdue makes of it, but obviously a very, very disappointing loss in front of obviously a sold-out crowd who is very excited about this season. And Purdue will obviously want to get better off of this. So lots of games to come in non-conference play of this caliber. If Purdue doesn't get significantly better on both ends of the floor here, get some answers to some of the questions it couldn't answer tonight, it might be a little bit along the same lines as last season's non-conference schedule. But obviously that's a ways down the line. Clearly the biggest thing tonight is Purdue's got a long way to go here. So that's what I got. I know I've repeated myself multiple times here. We're trying to keep these things under 15 this year, and I'm doing a pretty good job so far. So I'm going to cut it off right here before I start talking in circles again and repeating everything I've said over and over again, and then saying it again, and then being redundant, and then being repetitive. But so from Purdue's 70-66 loss to Texas here in Mackey Arena, this is Brian Neubert from GoldenBlack.com. For myself, for the vacuums behind me, cleaning up Mackey Arena. Was it backvacs or vacuums? What were we calling them? I can't remember. The vacuums on people's backs that they use to clean the arena. Either vac-backs or back-vacs or vacuums. I can't remember which one we decided was better last year. But anyway, from Purdue's 70-66 loss to Texas here in Mackey Arena, Brian Neubert here from GoldenBlack.com. Thank you for watching. Thank you for reading. Thank you for listening. And thank you for processing our materials, however it is you process our materials. We will talk to you again whenever the hell Purdue plays again. I don't know when that is. It might be Marquette this week, at Marquette later in the week. So we'll talk to you from Milwaukee, the good land. Good night, everybody.